Hey, what's up? It's Alex. And most of the devices I talk about on this channel are either laptops, cell phones, tablets, some kind of computing device, watches. But today we're going to talk about a camera. This camera is actually very near and dear to my heart. It's the one that's filming me right now, the Sony a7 III, and today we're going to find out if it's worth buying here at the end of 2020. This camera was released in early 2018, which puts it at almost 3 years old, and it technically has no successor yet. We just got the Sony a7S III last fall, but it's a different lineup. Sony a7, the Alpha 7 cameras, they go one of two ways, or one of three ways, I guess. The a7 III is very middle of the road. It's good for video, it's good for photo, right? That's it. A7R series, so like the R3, the A7R4 is a camera that I considered buying. Has a very high megapixel count. Those are really good for photos, not so much good for videos. And then on the flip side of the coin, the A7S series, so the S3 just came out. There was a S2 before. Really, really good for video, but not so much good for photos. So the A7, no letters after it, is very middle of the road. It's good for photo and video. That's why I chose this camera. There is no a7 IV yet. There are rumors about when it could potentially come out in the next year or two, but as of right now, the a7 III is top of the line in its own subclass and subcategory. And it's a little different topic to talk about because I'm always talking about cell phones and laptops and things that become obsolete quickly. You know, when a cell phone has a life cycle of like 5 years before they just stop giving it updates and then it kind of bricks it and you can't use it anymore. Cameras are very different. I mean, if a camera works and it takes great photo and great video, as long as you take care of it and don't like break it or destroy the thing, it will continue working like forever. You know, software updates are different. They can put software on it, but then it just works. It's not a device that connects to the internet, so it's a completely different piece of electronic equipment. So that being said, when you buy a camera, you kind of view it way differently than a cell phone. You don't look to upgrade it again in like 2 years. You know, you're gonna buy it and you're gonna stick with it for probably a very long time. So it should be an investment, a worthwhile investment, if you're going to use it in any kind of professional sense. So that being said, this camera body sells brand new for about $2,000, which is not too far off. It's maybe a couple $100 cheaper than when it was announced almost 3 years ago. And that's just crazy. You know, that makes my point of cell phones don't sell for almost their retail price 3 years later. They're like cut in half the prices, you know. So this thing is still an amazing camera. It holds its value very, very well. So for $2,000, you can get the body and then you can add on lenses for additional money. But you can find these much cheaper if you're willing to opt for a used model. You know, hopefully find something with a low shutter count. I was able to find mine on eBay with a low enough shutter count for $1,300. That was just the body, and then I got lenses and whatnot. So in total, I spent about $2,000 on it, but I got several lenses with it as well. So this mirrorless DSLR camera sports a 24.2 megapixel camera, which is more than enough to get incredible images 99.9% of the time. And being a Sony camera, it has great dynamic range with 15 stops. So I know that as long as I'm shooting in that 14-bit uncompressed RAW format, I can trust my images to have many layers of color and light depth to them that I can pull out later in the editing process. It also has an ISO range of 50 to 204,800, which is crazy. It'll shoot raw photos in 15 frames per second and has amazing autofocus through it all. Seriously, I swear this camera can just read my mind. When I'm going to take a picture, it'll just know what I want to focus on and grab it right away and keep that focus. It's so good. Coming from the Lumix lineup, they have terrible autofocus in their cameras. This camera is seriously a breath of fresh air. And for you video folks, it'll shoot in 4K up to 30 frames per second or 1080 up to 120 frames per second, which is super slick. It's basically got all the bells and whistles you can want out of a camera. If you want to go any higher, you might as well just get a cinema rig or get something in the S lineup if you're using it for video. But this thing is pretty sweet. And for me, this is the perfect camera because I wanted that mix between being able to take great photos and also create high quality 4K videos for my YouTube channel. So I started shooting on the Canon 80D, which took amazing photos, but had terrible video and it was expensive. So I sold that and I got a Lumix G7, and it was very good at video, being a little mirrorless camera, and it was terrible for photos. Like I might as well have used my phone. It was the same megapixel count, like Same thing, micro four thirds. And then I jumped to this, and it's honestly the best of both worlds. It takes amazing quality photos with that 24 megapixel full frame sensor in a mirrorless body. And because it's mirrorless, I get 4K video out of it, and it's super good. I am like seriously so happy with this camera. I probably won't upgrade it for a very long time, at least until the a7 IV comes out, or maybe the 5, we'll see. But this camera is definitely a really good starting place if you want high quality photo and video imagery out of the same camera. Now obviously, if you're going to invest in it, your glass, your lenses are even more important, I would argue, than your camera. So this is a really good place to start, but if you can, get invested in some good lenses. Sony makes probably the most expensive lenses on the market, but they are also probably the best. Like seriously, like several grand for a lens, and it's ridiculous. I don't own any personally, none of those like high-end S whatever Sony calls them. I just have some smaller kit lenses and some other ones I found deals on, or like vintage lenses. But your lens will make all the difference with the camera, and especially with this one. And another thing with the lenses, don't worry if you're coming from a different system. So like, let's say you have Canon lenses. Canon lenses are like the easiest thing to transfer, and there are adapters basically for every camera to any camera. So I used to have Canon lenses, and I would just use an adapter for this camera. It's like $100-200 or whatever. You can get an electronic adapter so that all your autofocus works in the lens. So don't think you have to like sell your lens collection and then jump ship to Sony. Like, you can move any lens to any camera, you just need a cheap adapter for it. But anywho, if you're looking for a camera that can do it all, take great photos and great video, and it's portable, and it's just all around an awesome package, I would highly recommend the Sony a7 III. It's a fantastic camera, fantastic bargain. Price isn't going down anytime soon, at least until they release the next one, but definitely worth looking into if you want to get into Sony. Thanks for watching. Let me know if this helped you at all. Let me know if you're planning on buying this camera. If you have it, maybe you love it as much as I do. What do you currently shoot on? What kinds of things do you shoot? Are you more video? Are you more photo? I want to know. This is like a pretty popular camera. I know a lot of people like it, so I'd like to hear people's thoughts on it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.